How you guys doing?
Awesome.
All right, are you guys having a good Texas Frightmare Weekend? All right, well, it is still going, and we're kicking off the day with a proper one. Give a big Texas-sized welcome to hometown hero, Mr. Joe Bob Briggs. We're already seconds into this panel. You already got a marriage proposal from this lady, so this is off to a good start. We're gonna do this kind of convention style properly. If you have a question, we'll just make it a big conversation and we'll get to you guys. But I'm gonna kick it off. You've been doing this so long, but you're a fan first, just like all of us, so I kind of want to put it in the perspective of like when you started doing this, who was you're such a hero to us. Who was your hero that you met that you were like, this is huge? Like,
you mean when I first started writing about?
When you got into this, yeah.
Really, I just started doing it because nobody was reviewing the films.
Right.
They were considered disposable trash, and mainstream newspapers didn't pay any attention to them.
Right.
And so I started doing a column, to celebrate the movies, but the guy who influenced me the most was Roger Corman.
Right.
Because the early conversations I had about Roger loves to talk about theory, and so, what are the elements that make an exploitation film? So that developed into the drive-in films, which are blood, breath, and beast. He didn't express it as blood, breath, and beast, but that's what it became.
And you got your start here, right here in Dallas. I'm curious to know what in your life kind of did you feel like inspired you or prepped you to go from writing to hosting such a specific thing with a specific set of skills, and you're so good at it.
Completely an accident. The movie channel had gone over to Europe and bought a bunch of crap that they brought back to the U.S. and they decided they needed curators for the crap, And so they saw an article that I had written for Rolling Stone magazine. I'd gone down to the set of Texas Chainsaw 2 and done an interview with Dennis Hopper. They wanted me to do a Dennis Hopper interview because Dennis Hopper was coming out of rehab and he hadn't been seen in several years.
One of the many times.
Yeah, well no, it was actually the last time he came out of rehab. He was good the rest of his life. And so I went down and his agents and managers didn't want him to do Texas Chainsaw 2. And so it was kind of an interesting interview. But so I went down to Austin to do this interview with Dennis Hopper, and it ran in Rolling Stone. And so the powers that be at the movie channel said, we don't have a lot of money. We'll just bring in some hosts to host these movies, and we'll have Joe Bob come in for 1 month and host some softcore sex films from West Germany that suck, and some horror films, and some cheesy action films from Spain, and there was just this weird stuff that when you go to a film market, you want one movie, you're trying to license this one movie, and they say, well, you can have that if you buy 40 others, and so you end up with this package of 40 movies, and you don't know what to do with them. So that's what happened. Showtime Networks had all these movies.
Right.
And so I went and I hosted for 1 month. It was just me in the lazy boy recliner with the steer horns on the back, and at this crappy little insert stage by Penn Station in Manhattan. And after we did the month, they said, well, why don't you come back and do another month? That worked pretty well. So we did 4 more weeks of double features, and then they said, well, why don't you come back another month? And we did this like 4, 5, 6 times. I think I never had a contract with them. I just stayed there 11 years. And so eventually the set got a little bigger, so we moved to this set in the studio in Spanish Harlem, the old Dumont Network studios that where the Honeymooners was filmed. So we were in Spanish Harlem in this big stage, and we were, filming this little show. And I finally said, you guys are wasting a lot of money, bringing me up here to Spanish Harlem every month, and so let's just go. Let me do it. I can do it at Channel 13 in Dallas, and so I became the producer of the show, and we just brought it about it. What people don't understand about the movie channel show and the TNT show is the networks didn't really care about their show. They were not high priority shows for them. And so that's why we had so much freedom to do whatever we wanted.
Well, and I was going to ask you, you've had to watch a lot of movies over the years, and you've introduced all of us to a lot of movies. I was going to ask you if there was ever one that you just couldn't get through, and then I listened to your recent episode with our friends at Shockwaves, and you talked about the pig fucking movie. Sorry, there's no kids in here. So, in case you haven't listened to that episode, you should, and we won't go into it, but what is the pig fucking movie called, just so we can all...
Oh man, I always
it's straight out from your brain.
It has a Belgian name. It's like La Noces or Anoses or Sa Noces. Somebody's Googling it right now. Pig fucking movie.
I'm sure at least one of these guys
it comes up right. If you Google pig fucking movie, it comes up right away.
I would hope there would not be multiple, IMDb top 10 pig fucking movies. I hope that's not a thing. It's just that weird episode of Black Mirror, pretty much.
It's not that far beyond the realm of possibility that I would host a pig fucking movie.
No, no one. It's very on brand for you. Is there maybe like a crazy kind of movie-going experience that sticks out to you? Because all these movies have experiences around them as well of people watching them.
You mean an experience when I watched them?
Like if you had to go see it in the theater, you used to have to go to like the.
Oh, I had to go to the drive-in to review most of these films because they didn't play anywhere else.
Right.
So when I was first reviewing the movies, I would call up the distributors and say, "Hey, I see you got Graveyard Tramps coming up. Would you screen that for me?" And they say, "We don't ever screen our movies for critics ever." And so I would have to go to the drive-in, on opening night in order just to see the movie. And so we did have 365-day-a-year drive-ins in Dallas at the time. Yeah. And so I would go to the Astro Drive-In or the Gemini Drive-In or the one in Grand Prairie. And in January, I would sometimes be the only car. Because it would be freezing, it would fog. Fog is the only thing that can close down a drive-in.
Yeah, that's true.
No amount of weather can close it down, but fog can actually cause people to ask for their money back.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing 10 Violent Women, all right, which I think is it's either a Fulci film or a Kazi film, I can't remember. But I was the only person watching it in a drive-in. That's one thing to go to a regular theater and be the only person there, but to be the only person at the drive-in. I felt obligated to buy something at the concession stand.
I love imagining you by yourself, just in your car, being the only, literally the last drive-in. You ever still? The drive-in thing is kind of making a comeback in this kind of nostalgia age that we're in. We have one old school one still around called the Galaxy. That's a little bit inside of town, and then there's the Coyote in Fort Worth. But those guys are great.
Well, the Galaxy looks old, but it's actually less than 20 years old.
Yeah.
And the Coyote does look new, and it is new.
Yeah.
But people have been saying that to me for my entire career.
Yeah.
Are drive-ins making a comeback? I guess this is the last drive-in, after the death of the drive-in.
Yeah.
And yet the next year comes and 400 drive-ins open for business.
It's like ASL stores.
That's why I say, the drive-in will never die, and that's why we called it the last drive-in, because there will always be the last drive-in. There will always be drive-ins.
That's true. Well, that's a good segue into my last question before we take it out to you guys. Like, how do you now look back on all of this in this just crazy kind of renaissance in with the Shudder show, and it's just kind of been this amazing renaissance of Joe Bob Briggs that we're all very excited to be in and living in.
Yeah.
What happened is what kind of has always happened repeatedly in my career is that nobody wants to hire me, and then something happens with the fans, and I get hired anyway.
It only takes you breaking the internet to make that happen.
I used to get fired frequently from newspapers, for example, and then there would be a write-in campaign, and I would sort of half-ass get back in. They put me on page 57F or something, but I'd get back in the paper, And so fans throughout my life have always saved my ass.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened here. That was a wait and see, one shot kind of thing. There was no great enthusiasm for it. We had no money. We had to borrow stuff. Actually, we were going to walk away because the money was not enough to do it.
Yeah.
And they called me up and said the crew will work for free.
Wow.
And so, I had to do it.
Yeah.
And so we ended up filming it in this abandoned warehouse in the slums of Newark, New Jersey.
So fitting.
And it's actually the studio used by a reality show called Ink Master.
Yeah.
Ink Master and all the Ink Master spinoffs have this abandoned factory thing in Newark. And they loaned us a little room. We had one little room where we could rebuild the Monster Vision set or some version of it. And fortunately we had an art director named Yuki from Japan, who is a complete. You know how Japanese become crazy fetishists about specific topics. Well,
I think I've seen a lot of them now.
Well, his thing was Western, was cowboys.
Perfect.
And so he owns more bolo ties than I do. And even this is just like a dream job for Yuki. So Yuki created that Monster Vision set, and that's where we did the marathon. And we kind of thought it was a one-shot thing. And but Felissa Rose was there as our guest.
Yep.
And Felissa kept saying to me, Joe Bob, this is really special here, really special. And I said, Felissa, we're in the slums of New York. We have no money. We have no time to shoot this thing properly, and she's like, no, it's really special. It just feels really special. And so I handed it to Felissa. She saw something in Newark. She was loving Newark. So.
She's so sweet. She's the best. All right, let's take it out to you guys. Yes, sir. So first, hand go.
I listened to your podcast that you did, the movies that made me, with Josh Olson and Joe Dante. You remember? Okay, I was.
Yeah.
Have you been in talks to go back to do another episode? Or did they ask you to maybe come back another time to do another episode?
Do they want me to come back? I was just on.
I just say it was very, very entertaining, and like the way they pick your brain. I don't know. Sometimes they say, "Oh, we're going to have this guy back on." I don't know if they extended another invite to you to have you.
Well, thanks. No, I've done several podcasts over the last few months, and that was one of them. But they all kind of blur together, and I don't remember what exactly is said on each one. But yeah, they were very nice, and sometimes people can know too much about you, and you get into real specific details about stuff that other people give a shit about. And so I felt like we kind of got too detailed in that one, if I'm remembering the right one. You know?
That's why it was so entertaining.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about doing, I mean, I know you're busy, but have you ever thought about doing a podcast?
You know, people keep saying to me, podcast.
I think you have a few stories to
I have to
tell.
say, I used to be every summer I would go to KFOG Radio in San Francisco. Is anybody here from San Francisco? Okay. Well, if you know, KFOG used to be the classic rock station in San Francisco, and they were fans, and so they would have me come and be the relief morning guy for 1 week in the summer. Well, so you're on from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. All right. By 8 a.m. on the first day, I was out of material. I don't know how those radio guys do it, you know. And so the rest of it was just taking phone calls. You know, call into the show, let's talk, you know. And then finding the longest Grateful Dead song that we can find. Let me run. And so I don't think podcasting is my thing, you know, because it's kind of a radio thing, and I'm more of like a, you know, I like to know where we're going and completely, you know, be in charge of it.
Yeah. Right here.
So you obviously watch a lot of different movies, but do you have any like comfort food films that you've watched like 100 times and absolutely?
Movies I've watched 100 times, probably I'll watch Spinal Tap every time it comes on. It still makes me laugh. You know. As far as dramas, I'll watch The Hustler with the original Hustler with George C. Scott and Paul Newman and Jackie Gleason. You know, just one of the. I know George C. Scott didn't like the movie for some reason, but you know, just one of the greatest film noirs. Also, one of the greatest movies, a black and white movie shot in CinemaScope. Nobody does that. Nobody shoots a black and white movie in CinemaScope, but that's what they did.
What did you try to keep up on current horror? What's something you've seen recently?
Well, I keep up a little bit only because we're looking at stuff, you know, to consider to use on the show. So I don't want to give anything away on what I've watched really recently.
Yeah.
But you know, but for example, we showed Wolf Cop.
Yeah. I love how you're starting to do some newer stuff too.
And that was interesting movie. The thing about this generation of horror filmmakers is they tend to look backwards. They tend to do homages to older films. Jordan Peele being a notable exception.
Yeah.
But all the others tend to do these. Even the great ones. You know, even Ty West. You know, great filmmaker. You know, even he does like 80s homages.
House of the Devil, for sure.
It's like, let's look in the other direction for a while, okay? Let's look in the future. let's stop going back to these old tropes, you know, from the past. No matter how well you do them, you know, it's still, you know, it's still kind of the sign of a degenerate era in filmmaking.
Yeah. House of Ty West's House of the Devil is probably the most authentic homage to that decade. You could have put that in a video store and convinced me.
Yeah, I don't know. He gets a lot of the language wrong. You know, he didn't quite. I mean, he was 3 years old. The year that he's trying to reproduce on camera. You know.
Yeah, right here.
So first off, thank you for being one of the best parts of my childhood. I appreciate that. Kind of to piggyback off of his question, you've seen thousands of horror films. So out of all the horror films you have seen, is there one that really resonates with you that you thought was not total crap?
What?
Besides the
Are
Pixar.
you asking me for a great horror film?
Yeah, what you would consider.
Great?
Yeah, one that you.
I still consider, giving all the obstacles and the odds against him, Toby Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of the greatest, just pure achievements in film. I mean, I think when Clive Barker, as a first-time director, did Hellraiser, again, not having all the resources needed, that was a great moment in recent horror history. And of course, I think the whole modern era of horror starts with Romero's Night of the Living Dead. And I know these aren't original points of view, but it's true.
They're classics for a reason.
If he doesn't make that movie, a lot of other indie filmmakers around the country don't make their movie. And those original movies that came out in the late 60s, early 70s, those were pretty much made by people who had access to equipment and money. The barriers of entry to being a filmmaker were really, really high. So that tended to be commercial film guys in towns around the country who were trying to break into the film business. And George Romero gave him the idea to do that, you know. And so he was the guy. I'm always trying to get, how many are from Pittsburgh here? Only 3? Oh wow, that's because you have so many fucking horror events in Pittsburgh. You don't have to go anywhere, you know. But I've always tried to, you know, there's no national horror film festival. There are people who have aspired to that, you know, to be the horror Sundance, and I always encourage, you know, the local guys to say, you know, you could be that guy. And I always think it should be in Pittsburgh. I always think it should be in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is like the birthplace.
Yeah.
You know, it could be anywhere, but I always tell these guys in Pittsburgh, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to step up. You know, and represent your city.
Yeah.
You know, and so.
Take that back to your city and make it happen. We're counting on you. Yes, right here.
Going back to the real horror that started back in 1980 with Candy Montgomery, can you talk about how you got involved in that and you co-authored the book and how you put that book together? And
Oh, okay. If I remember, I'll talk about that. I was originally an investigative reporter, and so there was a famous axe killing in the suburbs of Dallas, and the lawyer for the defendant wanted someone to write a book about it, and he went to all the famous people, and they said no. And finally he asked me and my partner Jim Atkinson if we wanted to take a crack at it. We went out and met the defendant and met the other people involved in the case, and ended up doing it was a 2-year project to write that book, and eventually became a TV movie, and somebody just handed me one yesterday to sign.
Wow.
And so yeah, so that was Evidence of Love was the book, and Killing in a Small Town was the TV movie.
Wow.
With Barbara Hershey got an Emmy for it.
Yes, right here.
I was Candy Montgomery's babysitter.
You were Candy Montgomery's babysitter?
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Back to church.
So you know the whole story.
I know everybody.
Wow. Oh, she knows where the bodies are buried. Yeah, right here.
So, I think everyone in this room, we can agree that we're so weird that algorithms will never get us, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, but at the same time, you talked about a time no one really appreciated these movies in mass anyway. Do you think things are better with the algorithm age as far as discovering these kind of movies, or are they worse?
With like things like Shudder.
What are you saying? You're part of the hardcore horror algorithm? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is,
You just been like finding this obscure stuff.
when I was a kid, I would have never watched these movies. You introduced them. The idea
Oh.
of the human curator saying, "Hey, watch this, trust me,
Yeah.
it's good." The algorithm.
Yeah.
won't
The
do
question is have things changed, and I guess you're saying, have the movies become more acceptable to, yes and no. I mean, yes and no. There's a big difference between a sci-fi convention and a horror convention. Have you noticed? It's a different audience. It's a different group of people. Now, I'm not going to make any generalizations about what those exactly but I would just say horror audiences are more hardcore. They're just more hardcore, not just in what they like, but in their lifestyle choices and everything. So it is a different group. It's a different group. And so I mean, what's different is the guy who used to watch one horror movie a year probably watches 2 or 3 now. And so, when Shape of Water wins the Academy Award, that means you're going to have about a 5-year period where you have a lot of big budget horror, because people are trying to follow up that success. But it also means you're going to have a lot of good indie low budget horror, because once a movie makes, how much did it make? $600 million or something like that. How much did Halloween make? 800 million, I don't know. But whatever they made, What that means is people who are not making horror films before are looking back through the library and they're saying, yeah, you know that script that has been passed around Hollywood for 15 years and everyone loves it, but everyone's afraid to make it. Let's make that fucker. You know, and so you have all these projects that are in limbo that suddenly get made. They suddenly get moved up the ladder.
Yeah.
So it's good for indie guys too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe the fish fucking movie winning Academy Award means the pig fucking movie has hope. I don't know. I do think we're in a really beautiful time for horror between things like Hereditary and all the stuff A24 is doing, and then Jordan Peele, and it's a really interesting time for art house horror, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the young filmmakers for the first time in the past, it's only been in the past 20 years that you could watch everything.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of hard to watch a lot of stuff prior to 1990. And so young filmmakers have watched all the French New Wave, and they've also watched all the Romero films. So they know all the tricks in the bag.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. It's going to make for better. That's going to make for better horror. It's going to make for better movies in general.
Right. I would think even the big studio stuff that is coming up, like all the stuff that Blumhouse is doing, and you know, something like A Quiet Place, like I think those are interesting as well. Like, you know, the big studio horror stuff.
Yeah, although, you know, there's a real danger, like World War Z, okay?
Yes.
Great book,
Oh,
you know, passed around Hollywood, everyone says, great book, somebody's got to make this, somebody's got to make it. So what do? They get a big cast and a big budget, and they start making it, and they say, wow, we're sort of afraid of the strange structure and the strange narrative and the strange way this story is told. We need a classic third act ending, and so they throw everything out. They spend another $40 million to do a new ending, and they ruin the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, but they still make enough money that they want to do a sequel. They just canceled the sequel.
Yeah.
And and I was like, can you cancel the one you already made? Because we kind of like to see that book, you know.
Yeah.
So
it should have been a series.
That's the danger if you have people with too much money at stake with a sort of marginal property.
One of my favorite George Romero quotes from Frightmare when we did a screening with him was, I thought Zack Snyder's Man of Steel was the worst movie I ever saw, and then I saw World War Z. So, take it from George Romero. But he actually liked Zack's remake of Dawn of the Dead, so there you go. Yeah, right there.
Mr. Joe Bob, me and my brother love your show. We watch it at work, but I'm a little curious.
Oh, wait, hold on. What's your job?
I hope you work at the fire department.
We print shirts for people.
Oh, cool.
We got you a shirt, and we got Darcy Noble shirt. So,
Thanks. Okay, thank you.
we're wondering, how does your breast counter work? It's very loose. It's 18 and things like, same.
You know, you would be surprised how many people ask me that.
Just the science mechanics of it.
You know, you must see the nipple, and one breast, and the breast can't be recounted unless it's a new scene.
I love how you broke it down.
I was wondering, hearing you talk about how your fans have saved your ass, if there's anything, not that you need to do more, that you would love to do, that your fans could support you in, that is outside of what you're doing now.
What a great question.
How
can we help?
Things that I'd like to do outside of what I'm doing now.
That we can support you in.
Yeah, well, I want to. I'm going to produce films, and so I just want you to support those films. I don't really believe in Kickstarter and Indiegogo and stuff like that. I believe, you know, you go and you get your own money and you make the movie and then you make people happy and they pay to see the movie. And so, so it's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be like independently financed, low budget, Well, once again, my model for it is Roger Corman. Virtually everything that I have learned about the business has been thanks to Roger Corman.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sleazy people in the business that we're talking about, and I've never once heard anybody say that Roger Corman didn't pay him. I've heard many people say he didn't pay him enough. But nobody ever said Roger Corman ripped me off. And so, so I want it to be that kind of company like New World in the 1970s. That's what I would like to do next.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's time for just a few more. Let's go man in a hat right there.
So we talked about like the new age of studio horror, Blumhouse, stuff like that, and then the overt homages, Jordan Peele. We kind of danced around like the real art house, like Ari Aster and Killing of a Sacred Deer, Hereditary. I'm wondering if you have a take on that.
You know, if it's a good movie and it retains my attention and it's full of suspense and it's full of horror, I don't make this distinction between elevated horror and lowbrow horror that a lot of people do. What you're really dealing with is it a personal film or is it a big crowd pleaser type film?
Yeah.
And it can be either one and be very, very satisfying.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take a film like A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, have you seen that film?
Oh yeah.
Iranian black and white vampire western.
Yeah, weird
Female
film.
as well.
Very, very weird film. Very unexpected. Goes in very unexpected directions. May not even really be a horror film, but it has a lot of horror elements.
It's so good.
However, compelling from beginning to end. Now, do you want to watch it over and over? Probably not. But you know, that would be an example of a very arty film. I would assume everybody in it, took art class in school. Does that make it less valid than Demon Wind, which we showed 2 weeks ago? They used a bunch of guys trying to make a buck and throwing everything they could into the. No, it doesn't make it any less valid or any less fun. There's a whole range of experiences. Horror film is just a basket term. That's just a basket term.
Yeah.
There are many kinds of films within that.
I think what's interesting though for those types of movies is coming from an exhibition side with Al and the Draft House is seeing how wide of an audience a movie like Hereditary is reaching and how that opens the door to more films being like that. That movie was and even Jordan Peele stuff, which feels more niche, but then it's finding huge audiences and it's maybe making mainstream audiences more horror. They're turning everybody they're converting them into horror fans. So I welcome more weirdos to join us. So right here.
Yeah, the special effects for horror movies. Me personally, I always prefer the traditional special effects. I feel too much CGI can kill it. I just wanted to make sure you want traditional versus CGI.
The question is about CGI and traditional special effects. Anything is permissible. Anything that works is permissible. People get their panties in a bunch about too much CGI.
Yeah.
Well, if you're probably the reason you get your panties in a bunch is that you're noticing the CGI. On the movies that are where the CGI is done really, really well, you're not even noticing that it's there. And so there's nothing wrong with a lot of CGI. There's nothing wrong with doing a whole movie of just CGI and no mechanical effects whatsoever. It's just that every movie is different, and neither is better than the other.
Yeah. Let's go. Did you have a question? And then.
Yeah. I was kind of curious because there's been a real shift from feature films to miniseries that are streaming or TV shows. I mean, what do you think the translation of art is for that film?
You're asking me a question about genres, or you're asking me a question about
like
formats, feature films,
formats,
as opposed to series, as opposed to, well, for the first time in history, this is a wonderful thing. A movie can be 5 minutes, or it can be 192 hours. How many hours are in Walking Dead? It's got to be 200 hours by now, right?
Too many.
Yeah. and so as a creator, you're no longer limited to how long people's butts can take a seat in a theater. I mean, that's basically why we have the 2-hour film, you know, the 90-minute to 2-hour and 15-minute film, is because that's how long you can sit in a theater. Now, there's also something about that that's in the back of our brain that goes, that's the right length, that's the right length, you know, that we just kind of go, oh, that's very satisfying, that's exactly 2 hours, and so we like it. And so I think there'll always be a place for the 2-hour feature film, because it's just, there's just something about it that's the size of a bite that we feel is a full meal. That is a full meal.
Yeah.
But all the other formats now, I mean, anything goes. All the great screenwriters have left the screen and have left movies and gone to TV.
Yeah.
And so, or they've gone to streaming actually. They haven't even gone to TV. They've gone to streaming. And so, but that's a great thing, because that means we'll have that many more varieties of filmmaking. Yeah. What's bad is you know, the technology got really cheap, and over the past 20 years, and a lot of guys stopped going to film school. You know, they just said, I'll just buy the equipment. You know, and so a lot of the really low budget stuff that could have been better is not that good. But we're fixing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we've ever really had a period where we had long form horror storytelling, and now we have stuff like, you know, Haunting a Hill House, which absolutely should have existed long form in the way we were able to like settle in with that story. So yeah, it's actually, I've never thought about that. It's an exciting time for long form horror storytelling. All right, we'll take a couple more. Oh, yeah. Hi. Oh, there are people over here. Sorry. I just see hands.
I'm a new watcher. My boyfriend introduced me to the show, and I really love the show. It's a great show.
Thank you.
And you're very entertaining. I really enjoyed the Christmas special. I love the Phantasm movies. They were excellent. And do you have it? Are there any plans to make another series like that? Like another
like a whole franchise?
Yeah.
Like plans to do another
franchise marathon.
I will never show 4 Phantasm movies. And I like Phantasm. Even I was going, where is Reggie? What's he doing now? Who did he just kill? Who came back to life? Which guy is in the alternate universe? It was like, it was too much. It was just too much. And so, yeah, the hardcore Phantasm people loved it. You know, and everyone and the people who really don't care that much for Phantasm tolerated it, and we got through it. But I'm not sure. Now, what I would do is I would show. I mean, that's a franchise where it's the same movie for 10 hours. You know?
I hope they release a box set and the quote on the cover is, "It was just too much." Joe Bob Briggs.
If there's a, you know, people ask me this question all the time. They say, "What's the best Friday the 13th movie?" And I say, "Look, I watched them when they came out. And so they all blur together, because I watched them 2 years apart. You know, you just binge watched them, didn't you? You know, you watched them all at once, so you can make a comparison between them. But I find it hard to make those comparisons. But we did it on Monster Vision. We did one of our most popular shows was we did a Friday the 13th marathon of about, I think we did 4 of the movies, 4 or 5, I can't remember. One of them was missing. And the one that was missing is everyone's favorite when they binge watch, which was Friday the 13th 4. Yeah. And so if we did it again, I would try to do either the Friday the 13th series or some other series like that that sort of, it has a continuing story, but it's not not really. Yeah. I mean, in one sense, it's the same story over and over again, and then in the other sense, it's like, you know, you introduce these new characters and it becomes more. Goes in different twists.
All right, we got time for one more. Let's take it from this side, because I feel like this side's mad at me now. We need to win them back. You, sir, I saw your hand. Yes. Yes, you.
I was just wondering if you and your fans are aware of how important your role was in the movie Casino and how.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro's whole fucking world falls apart when he fires me, right? No, I wasn't aware of that. I'll tell you one quick interesting story is my uncle, who's the connected guy who gives me the job in Vegas, is played by L.Q. Jones, the great L.Q. Jones of The Wild Bunch and many other movies. De Niro, Pesci, Scorsese could not wait till L.Q. Jones got to the set. Of all the celebrities they wanted to meet in the world, they wanted to meet L.Q. Jones because they were fans of Westerns, and he was a classic guy, and he was, to them, he was like, the ultimate celebrity. So that was very interesting to me that they were fanboys for L.Q. Jones.
All right, we're going to take one more. All the way in the back. You, last question. You got a Joe Bob shirt on, you're standing up. Take us out, man.
You mentioned that you got into this racket because drive-in films were considered disposable trash. But I feel like we live in an age of disposable media in a different way. Like, anybody see the one with Sandra Bullock and the kids in the blindfolds?
Bird Box.
All anybody can talk about for a couple of weeks, and now it's never going to be mentioned again. So now that we live in, an age where the best thing you can do is to make a movie or something that's all anyone can talk about for a week or two, and then disappears after you grab the money. What's going to happen to us? What's happening?
Well, the great thing about the horror audience compared to all other audiences, is that the horror audience wants to see every film ever made from the beginning of time. So they want to see The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1922, and they want to see whatever movie came out last week, and then they want to see everything in between, and they want to know every subgenre ever made, and they want to be familiar with every, great period of horror. And there's no fans of comedy like that. There's no fans of action films that are like that. There's no, you name any other genre, doesn't exist, And so, horror films do have a life. They can be rediscovered at any moment. Arrow Video always amuses me. Forgotten Gem. We have this Forgotten Gem from 1984. And I'm like, that's not a Forgotten Gem. That's a film that didn't get distribution. Nobody wanted to buy that film in 1984.
They forgot to release it.
But some guy in Akron is very happy because he directed that film in 1984. And so horror films can come back with a vengeance. And so the wonderful thing about digital media is that it makes all things available forever.
Well, and we have to say, as we close this out, thank you for being that kind of purveyor of those films and introducing us to so many of those films. And in other words, a great last question, by the way. In other words, I think what you're saying is horror fans are the best fans in the world, and thank you so much for being here.